Weeks passed after that quiet meeting in the school garden. Ryan didn't leave Willow Creek. Every day he volunteered at Hope Village School, fixing broken furniture, painting classroom walls, and helping with small projects. He never tried to force conversations with Lily. He respected her silence, her space, her healing. Yet, every morning he made sure to be there, just to see her smile at the children or hear her soft laughter in the distance. That was enough for him. At first, Lily tried to ignore him. She thought he would eventually get tired and go back to his old world of luxury. But he didn't. Rain or shine, Ryan showed up, cleaning the yard, carrying supplies, or teaching the kids small lessons about dreams and courage. Slowly, the people in the town began to like him. They saw his sincerity. He wasn't the arrogant millionaire they imagined. He was humble, patient, and kind. One afternoon, a little boy named Tommy, one of Lily's favorite students, ran up to her holding a flower crown. "Miss Lily, Mr. Ryan made this for you," he said cheerfully. Lily turned, surprised, as Ryan stood a few feet away, smiling shyly. "It was the kid's idea," he said softly. Lily hesitated for a moment, then smiled faintly and took the flower crown. "It's beautiful," she said. The children cheered, and for the first time since their reunion, Ryan saw genuine warmth in her eyes again. Over the next few days, they started talking more, mostly about the school, the children, and plans for the future. But behind every casual conversation was a quiet tension, a shared history neither could forget. One evening, after the children had gone home, Lily found Ryan sitting alone on the porch watching the sunset. The orange light bathed his face in a warm glow. She sat beside him in silence. For a while, they just watched the fading sky. Finally, Lily spoke. "You've changed," she said softly. Ryan looked at her, his voice gentle. "You made me want to." She smiled faintly but shook her head. "You didn't change for me, Ryan. You changed because you finally saw who you could be." He nodded slowly. "Maybe? But it was you who opened my eyes." There was a long pause before Lily asked, "Why didn't you give up? You could have gone back to your world and forgotten all this." Ryan took a deep breath. "Because my world meant nothing without you. I used to think happiness came from money, parties, and power. But now I know it comes from moments like this, from truth, kindness, and love." His voice trembled slightly as he added, "And I'd rather spend my life doing something meaningful than live rich and empty." Lily looked at him quietly, her heart softening with every word. She could feel his sincerity. This wasn't the same man who once laughed at her behind her back. This was someone who had truly learned what love meant. She wanted to believe him, but her fear still lingered. "Ryan," she said, "I forgave you in my heart a long time ago. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust. Trust takes time," he nodded. "Then I'll wait, as long as it takes." The next morning, Ryan arrived at the school earlier than usual. He brought new books, art supplies, and even small desks he had personally built. The children cheered when they saw him. Lily watched from a distance, a warm smile spreading on her face. He wasn't trying to impress her anymore. He was just being himself, genuine, giving, and patient. Days turned into weeks, and Lily started to open up more. They shared meals, talked about life, and sometimes laughed about the old days. The walls around her heart began to fall slowly, one piece at a time. One evening, while walking through the village after a long day, a sudden rainstorm began. They ran for shelter under a tree, laughing breathlessly. Lily looked at him, her hair wet, her laughter echoing through the rain. Ryan stared at her, realizing how much he still loved her, more than ever. He took a deep breath. "Lily," he said softly, "I don't expect you to say anything. But I want you to know that my love for you isn't built on guilt or regret. It's built on who you are. The woman who showed me what real love means." She looked at him, silent, the rain dripping down her cheeks. Her heart pounded. For the first time in months, she saw the truth in his eyes, the same truth that had once made her fall in love with him. After a long moment, she smiled through her tears. "You really did change," she whispered. Ryan's voice trembled. Because I finally understood what I almost lost. They stood there in the rain, eyes locked, hearts heavy with emotion. Then Lily stepped closer and placed her hand on his chest. "Ryan," she said softly, "maybe it's time we stop running from the past." His breath caught as she looked into his eyes. "I don't know what the future holds," she continued, "but I'm willing to give it a chance. To give us a chance." Ryan's eyes filled with tears of relief and joy. He pulled her gently into his arms, holding her close as the rain fell around them. It wasn't about perfect endings or fairy tales. It was about forgiveness, growth, and real love. Months later, Hope Village School had grown bigger and brighter. With Ryan's help and Lily's vision, it became a beacon of hope for children in need. Together, they worked side by side, not as two broken souls, but as partners, building something beautiful out of their past mistakes. Every morning, Ryan would look at Lily and think about the day he met her, the day that started as a cruel bet, but turned into the greatest blessing of his life. And every night, when they stood together watching the sunset over the village, Lily would smile and whisper, "You see, Ryan, sometimes love doesn't start the right way, but if it's real, it always finds its way back." And with that, their story, once built on a cruel joke, became a timeless tale of forgiveness, transformation, and true love that changed both their lives forever. The next morning, Ryan woke up with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. The small card from the child lay on his bedside table, and he couldn't stop staring at the name written on it, Hope Village School. That single clue was like a lifeline pulling him out of the emptiness he'd been living in. He immediately got dressed, skipped breakfast, and began calling charity organizations and education boards, trying to find out where this school was. Most of them hadn't heard of it, but one kind woman on the phone finally said, "Yes, Hope Village School. It's a small community project in a rural town near Willow Creek." Willow Creek. Ryan repeated the name under his breath. It was a quiet town several hours away from the city, a place people went to when they wanted peace or to start over. It sounded exactly like the kind of place Lily would choose. Without wasting a second, he packed a small bag, grabbed his car keys, and started driving. The city faded behind him as endless green fields and winding roads stretched ahead. For the first time in a long while, Ryan felt alive. The journey was long, but his heart was full of hope. As he drove, memories of Lily filled his mind. Her laughter, the way she talked passionately about helping others, her gentle nature. Every mile he traveled, he whispered silent apologies to her. "I was foolish," he said softly, gripping the steering wheel. "You were never a joke. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." The road curved through a forest before opening into a small, humble town. Children played near the street, and old men sat outside shops chatting happily. The place felt peaceful, untouched by the rush of the city. Ryan parked his car near a small schoolhouse painted in soft blue and white. A wooden sign outside read, "Hope Village School, for every child's future." His heart started pounding. He walked toward the gate, feeling nervous, as if he were about to face judgment for all his sins. Inside, he saw children laughing, painting, and learning in open classrooms. It was beautiful, simple but full of life. Then he noticed her. Lily. She stood at the front of a classroom, helping a little girl tie her shoelaces. Her hair was tied in a loose braid, and she wore a simple yellow dress. She looked peaceful, radiant, happier than he'd ever seen her before. Ryan froze where he stood. For a long moment, he couldn't move. All he could do was watch her, a lump forming in his throat. She was here. She was real. One of the teachers noticed him and asked politely, "Can I help you?" Ryan smiled weakly. "I'm here to see Lily." The teacher looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "She's just finishing her class. You can wait by the garden." Ryan thanked her and walked to a small garden beside the school. He sat on a wooden bench, his mind racing. What would he say? How could he apologize for everything he'd done? He practiced the words in his head. "I'm sorry, Lily. I was wrong. I never meant to hurt you." But nothing felt enough. Minutes later, he heard soft footsteps behind him. "Ryan?" Her voice was calm, but he could feel the surprise in it. He turned slowly and saw her standing there, looking at him with guarded eyes. For a moment, they just stared at each other in silence. "Lily," he finally whispered, his voice trembling. "I found you." She crossed her arms gently. "Why are you here, Ryan?" He stood up, his heart pounding. "To see you. To say I'm sorry. To tell you I was an idiot. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I couldn't live without trying." Lily looked away, her gaze distant. "It's been months," she said quietly. "You never called. You never came." Ryan stepped closer but kept his voice soft. "I didn't know where you were. I tried everything. When you left, I realized how empty my life was without you." She looked back at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "Ryan, you hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible. You made me believe in love, and then I found out it started as a game." Her voice broke slightly. "Do you have any idea how that felt?" Ryan swallowed hard, tears filling his eyes. "I know, Lily, and I'll hate myself forever for that. But it stopped being a game the moment I met you. I fell in love with you, truly. You changed me." Lily studied his face, searching for truth. She saw the exhaustion, the sincerity, the raw pain he wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't the proud millionaire she once met. He was human, broken but real. "I've changed too," she said softly. "This school, these children, they're my life now. I don't know if I can ever go back to what we had." Ryan nodded slowly. "I don't expect you to. I just want you to know that I'm not the man who made that bet anymore. I've been trying to become someone you'd be proud of." A long silence followed. The wind rustled the trees, and the laughter of children echoed nearby. Lily's expression softened slightly. "You look different," she said quietly. "Peaceful. But sad." Ryan smiled faintly. "That's what happens when you realize what really matters too late." She looked down at the flowers growing beside the bench. "Do you still think love is a bet, Ryan?" she asked gently. He shook his head immediately. "No, love is the only thing in this world that isn't a game." Tears glimmered in her eyes. She turned to walk away but stopped halfway. "I'm not sure I can forgive you yet," she whispered. Ryan nodded, his voice barely audible. "I'll wait, no matter how long it takes." She didn't reply, but as she walked back to her class, she paused for a brief moment and looked over her shoulder. Their eyes met again, and though no words were spoken, Ryan felt something small but real. Hope. As the sun began to set, Ryan remained in the garden, watching the children play, listening to their laughter. He realized that love wasn't about grand gestures or riches, it was about patience, trust, and redemption. And even if she never came back to him, he knew one thing for sure. Lily had changed his life forever. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered to him that their story wasn't over yet. The sound of the door closing behind Lily echoed through Ryan's mansion like thunder. The laughter, the light, and the warmth she had brought, all disappeared in that single moment. He stood frozen, staring at the door she had just walked out of, unable to move or breathe. His heart pounded painfully in his chest as guilt swallowed him whole. Ethan tried to apologize, stammering drunken words, but Ryan turned on him with cold fury. "Get out," he said in a low voice that sent chills through the room. "Ryan, I didn't mean—" Ethan began, but Ryan shouted, "Get out!" His voice cracked with rage and grief. Ethan stumbled out, leaving Ryan alone in the silence he had created for himself. For hours, Ryan sat on the living room floor, his head in his hands, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The truth, the one thing he'd been too afraid to reveal, had come out in the cruelest way possible. He had wanted to confess to Lily gently, to tell her everything when he thought she was ready, but now the truth was poisoned. It wasn't just a mistake anymore, it was betrayal. He replayed her face in his mind, the way her eyes filled with disbelief and heartbreak. "You already did, when you made me a bet." Her words cut deeper than any blade could. The next morning, Ryan drove to Lily's apartment. The streets were empty, and the rain fell steadily, blurring his vision. When he reached her building, he ran up the stairs and knocked on her door, calling her name. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Finally, her neighbor opened the door across the hall and said, "You're looking for Lily?" Ryan nodded desperately. The woman sighed. She left early this morning. Took her sister with her. Said she needed to get away. Ryan's heart sank. Did she say where she was going? He asked quickly. The woman shook her head. No, she just looked broken. Ryan drove aimlessly through the city for hours, checking every place they used to go, the park, the cafe, even the small bookstore she loved, but she was nowhere. Every corner reminded him of her smile, her laughter, and the love he had destroyed. When he finally stopped the car, he buried his face in his hands and broke down completely. For the first time in years, the proud, confident millionaire cried like a child. Days passed, then weeks. Lily didn't call, didn't message, didn't return. Ryan tried to reach her sister, Mia, but she didn't answer either. The house that had once been full of laughter now felt like a prison. Every object reminded him of her. The mug she used in the kitchen, the scarf she left on the couch, the faint scent of her perfume in the hallway. He couldn't escape the ghost of her presence. At work, he lost focus. Meetings felt meaningless, numbers blurred together, and his company started slipping. His friends avoided him, too ashamed or too uncomfortable to face him. One evening, unable to bear it anymore, Ryan visited Ethan. His former friend looked nervous when he opened the door. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," Ethan said quickly. "It was just a stupid joke," Ryan interrupted him. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Ethan looked away. "We both know it was going to come out someday." Ryan stepped closer. "Yes, but not like that. You humiliated her. You destroyed her trust. And you ruined the only real thing I've ever had." Ethan said nothing. Ryan stared at him for a long moment before turning away. "I never want to see you again," he said quietly, then walked out. The following weeks were a blur. Ryan stopped attending parties, ignored business calls, and spent his days visiting charity centers Lily had supported. He wanted to feel close to her in any way possible. One afternoon, while visiting a children's shelter, an old woman approached him. "You're Lily's husband, aren't you?" she asked kindly. Ryan nodded in surprise. The woman smiled gently. "She used to come here every week, bringing food and books for the children. She has a good heart?" Ryan's chest tightened. "Do you know where she went?" The woman shook her head. She said she was going to start a new life somewhere peaceful. Away from pain. Those words stayed with him. Away from pain. That was what he had given her. Pain. Not love, not safety, not trust, just pain. That night, Ryan stood on his balcony, looking out at the city lights. The world below continued as if nothing had changed, but for him, everything had ended. He whispered to himself, "I thought I was proving something, but all I proved was how empty I am without her." The next morning, Ryan made a decision. He called his assistant and told him to sell one of his luxury cars and donate the money to Lily's favorite charity. Then, he canceled his upcoming business trips and started spending time helping at community centers. Every act of kindness reminded him of her, of what she stood for. Slowly, he began to understand that love wasn't about showing power or pride. It was about giving, caring, and being honest. But he also knew it was too late to undo the damage. Months passed. Ryan's life had changed completely. He no longer cared about fame or status. The world saw him as a generous man, but he didn't do it for recognition. He did it because Lily had taught him how to feel again. Yet, even with all his good deeds, the ache in his heart never faded. Every sunset reminded him of her. Every quiet moment made him wish for another chance. One evening, as he was leaving a charity event, a small child tugged at his sleeve and handed him a handmade thank you card. On the back of the card was a name, Hope Village School, the new charity Lily had dreamed of starting. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be her? He turned the card over again and read the note written in neat handwriting. "Thank you for helping these children. You're changing lives." He recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Lily's. His heart began to race. Without wasting another moment, Ryan decided he would find her. He didn't care how long it took or how far he had to go. This time, it wasn't about pride or guilt. It was about love. The real kind. The kind she had shown him before he broke her heart. And now, he was ready to spend the rest of his life making it right. After the wedding, Ryan took Lily to his grand mansion, a place that seemed more like a palace than a home. The marble floors shone like glass, expensive art covered the walls, and servants greeted them with polite bows. Lily stood silently for a moment, holding Ryan's hand tightly. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice full of wonder. Ryan smiled softly, trying to hide the nervousness in his chest. He watched her explore the house like a child seeing a dream come true. For the first time, the mansion didn't feel empty anymore. Her presence filled it with life. In the first few weeks, Lily tried her best to fit into Ryan's world. She would greet the staff warmly, ask about their families, and help in the kitchen even though she didn't have to. The servants, who were used to cold orders from their boss, started smiling more whenever she was around. Ryan noticed it. He noticed everything. How she made everyone feel valued, how she thanked the gardener for the flowers, how she treated everyone with respect, no matter their position. She was the complete opposite of him, and that difference fascinated him. Ryan's friends, however, didn't stop their teasing. When he invited them over one evening, they whispered cruel jokes while Lily served snacks with her usual kind smile. "So, Ryan, how's married life with your bet project?" one of them said, chuckling. Ryan froze for a moment. Lily didn't understand what he meant, but she laughed politely and walked away. Ryan's blood boiled. "Watch your mouth!" he snapped. The laughter stopped. His friends exchanged uneasy looks. "Relax, man, it's just a joke," Ethan said with a smirk. "No," Ryan replied firmly, his tone cold. "She's my wife. She's not a joke." That night, after everyone left, Lily noticed Ryan sitting alone in the garden, staring into space. She walked over and sat beside him. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. He forced a smile. "Just tired." She rested her head on his shoulder. "You don't have to pretend with me, Ryan. I can see when something's bothering you." He sighed deeply. "You always see too much," he said, smiling faintly. She laughed softly. "That's what love does. It makes you see the truth in someone even when they try to hide it." Her words hit him hard. He looked at her, wondering how she could love him so completely when he had built their relationship on a lie. Over time, Ryan's habits began to change. The man who once lived for money and power started spending more time doing small things with Lily, cooking breakfast, going on long walks, visiting children's shelters she supported. She convinced him to fund a charity program for poor families. "You have the power to change lives, Ryan," she told him one morning. "Use it for something good." Her simple words opened his heart in ways he never expected. Soon, he was helping schools, donating to hospitals, and meeting people he had never cared to notice before. One day, Lily asked if they could visit her old neighborhood. Ryan agreed, though part of him worried about how people might react seeing a millionaire there. But when they arrived, he was touched. Everyone knew Lily and welcomed her warmly. Children ran to hug her, elders blessed her, and neighbors offered tea and homemade sweets. Ryan watched her laugh and talk freely, surrounded by love. He realized something. She didn't need riches to be happy. Her heart was rich enough. That evening, as they drove back home, Ryan looked at her and said, "You've changed me, Lily. I didn't even know I needed to change." She smiled and took his hand. "You didn't change, Ryan. You just found the part of you that was lost." Their days turned peaceful and sweet, filled with laughter and small acts of love. But deep inside, Ryan still carried the truth like a shadow following him everywhere. Sometimes, when Lily said something kind, he felt his heart tighten, thinking of how she would look at him if she knew everything. Each day that passed made it harder to tell her the truth. He wanted to protect her from the pain, but he also knew lies don't stay hidden forever. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, watching the sunset, Lily turned to him and said, "Do you ever think about how strange life is? How two people who were never supposed to meet can end up meaning everything to each other? Ryan looked into her eyes and whispered, "Every single day." She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. For her, it was a perfect moment. For him, it was bittersweet, because every word of love she spoke made his guilt grow heavier. A few days later, Lily planned a small dinner for his birthday. She invited some of his old friends, thinking it would make him happy. Ryan didn't want them there, but he didn't want to hurt her feelings. The dinner started well, until Ethan arrived, already half drunk. He raised his glass and laughed loudly. To Ryan, the man who turned a silly bet into a lifetime commitment. Everyone laughed awkwardly, not understanding what he meant. But Lily's smile faded. "A bet?" she asked softly, looking from Ethan to Ryan. Ethan's grin froze. "Oh, come on, Lily, you didn't know?" Ryan's heart stopped. The world around him seemed to go silent. Lily stood still, her eyes wide with confusion. "What is he talking about, Ryan?" she whispered. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Ethan realized his mistake, but it was too late. The truth had escaped, and there was no taking it back. The dinner turned cold, and Lily's heart shattered in that very moment. She looked at Ryan, her voice trembling. "Tell me it's not true." Ryan's throat felt tight. His hands shook as he whispered, "Lily, please, let me explain." But she stepped back, tears streaming down her face. "You don't need to explain, Ryan," she said, her voice breaking. "You already did, when you made me a bet." Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind the man who had finally learned how to love, but too late to keep it. Weeks turned into months, and Ryan's feelings for Lily only grew stronger, though he kept lying to himself that it was still just part of the plan. Every time he looked at her, he felt a warmth that made him forget the reason he started it all. His friends thought he had already won the bet, but Ryan didn't mention it anymore. The more time he spent with Lily, the less he cared about what anyone said. She had become the only real thing in his world of fake smiles and empty parties. Lily was happier than ever. For the first time in her life, she felt truly loved. Ryan treated her gently, with attention and care. He listened to her stories, made her laugh, and told her she was beautiful even on her worst days. She didn't know about the cruel bet that started it all. In her heart, she believed that love could really happen between two completely different people. Her friends from work teased her sweetly, saying she was living a fairy tale. Lily would blush and smile, saying, "He's not like the others. He's real." One evening, Ryan took her to the same park where they often sat under the big tree. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun set behind the trees. Lily was laughing at one of his jokes when Ryan suddenly went quiet. He looked at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. Her laughter faded and she asked softly, "What's wrong?" Ryan took a deep breath and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the fading light. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "will you marry me?" For a moment, Lily was speechless. Her hands covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "Ryan, are you serious?" she whispered. He nodded, smiling gently. "More serious than I've ever been about anything in my life." She burst into tears and said yes without hesitation. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, and she hugged him tightly, crying against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. The people walking by clapped and smiled, thinking it was a perfect love story. But deep inside Ryan's heart, guilt began to whisper. He told himself he'd confess everything one day, but not now. Not when she was so happy. When Ryan told his friends about the engagement, they were stunned. Ethan laughed in disbelief. "You're actually marrying her? That wasn't part of the deal, man." Ryan's face turned cold. "It's not a deal anymore," he said quietly. "It's my life." His friends exchanged looks, realizing the game had gone too far. But they said nothing. Some mocked him behind his back. Others shrugged it off, thinking he'd come to his senses soon. Ryan ignored them all. For the first time, he wasn't doing something to prove a point. He was doing it because he wanted to. Lily's family was shocked, but happy when they met Ryan. Her younger sister, Mia, couldn't stop smiling. "You're so lucky, Lily," she whispered. Their small house was filled with laughter and excitement as wedding plans began. Lily didn't want anything fancy. "I just want something simple," she told Ryan. "As long as you're there, it's perfect." Ryan smiled, touched by her sincerity. He had planned countless grand events before, but this small, genuine celebration felt more meaningful than anything else in his life. The wedding day arrived with sunshine and the smell of fresh flowers. Lily wore a beautiful white dress, simple yet elegant, that hugged her curves softly. Her eyes sparkled with joy. Ryan stood at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle, and his heart pounded. For a moment, the noise of the crowd disappeared. It was just her, walking toward him with that radiant smile. He had seen countless beautiful women before, but none had ever made him feel this way. He felt proud, nervous, and terrified all at once. When they exchanged vows, Lily's voice trembled with emotion. "I never thought I'd find someone who could love me for who I am," she said. "But you showed me that love doesn't care about looks or size. It only cares about hearts." Her words pierced Ryan's soul. He almost couldn't breathe as guilt twisted inside him. He looked into her eyes and repeated his vows, but each word felt heavier, almost painful. Deep inside, he promised himself that he would tell her the truth one day, after he had the courage to face it. As the ceremony ended, everyone cheered and threw flower petals in the air. Lily laughed joyfully, holding Ryan's hand, unaware of the silent storm building inside him. That night, they had a small reception with close friends and family. Lily danced with Ryan under fairy lights, her head resting on his shoulder. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "It feels like a dream." Ryan smiled faintly and said, "It is real, and it's forever." But his eyes revealed the truth he couldn't speak, the truth that haunted him more with every passing moment. Later that night, when Lily fell asleep beside him, Ryan lay awake staring at the ceiling. The bet that had started everything echoed in his mind. He remembered Ethan's laughter, the teasing voices, the challenge he had accepted out of pride. He had won the game, but he didn't feel like a winner. He felt trapped in the guilt of his own actions. The woman sleeping peacefully beside him was no longer part of a cruel joke. She was the best thing that had ever happened to him. And he knew deep down the truth would destroy her if she ever found out. Ryan turned toward Lily, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and whispered softly, "I'm sorry." The words were barely audible, swallowed by the silence of the night. He didn't know that fate had already begun its plan. Secrets have a way of coming out, and when his secret did, it would test their love in a way neither of them could imagine. For now, they were husband and wife, standing on the edge of a love story built on a lie that would soon demand its truth. Ryan had always believed he was in control of everything, his business, his image, his emotions. But after that first coffee with Lily, something began to shift, though he refused to admit it. He told himself it was just part of the game, that he was only doing what he had promised his friends. Still, each morning he found himself checking his watch, waiting for evening just so he could see her again. He had never waited for anyone before, yet now he was waiting for her. Lily's days were simple. She worked double shifts at the hotel to support her younger sister's education. She wasn't used to attention, especially from someone like Ryan. When he appeared again at the hotel with his easy smile and soft tone, she blushed, unsure how to act. He noticed how her hands trembled slightly when she handed him a coffee cup. "You don't have to be nervous," he said warmly. "I'm just a normal guy." Lily smiled faintly and replied, "Normal guys don't drive cars that cost more than my whole street." Ryan chuckled. "Maybe I'm trying to be different with you." Over the next few days, he found reasons to see her, sometimes pretending to have meetings at the hotel, other times just waiting in the lobby. He told himself it was still part of the bet, but inside, her laughter had started to echo in his thoughts even when she wasn't there. She spoke to him about simple joys, sunsets, family dinners, her sister's dreams of becoming a doctor. She never asked about his money or fame, only about what made him happy. That question always caught him off guard because he didn't have an answer. No one had ever asked Ryan about happiness. They only asked about his wealth or connections. One evening, it rained heavily, and Lily was about to leave for home without an umbrella. Ryan offered to drop her off. At first, she refused, saying she couldn't trouble him, but when the rain grew stronger, she agreed. In the car, she sat quietly, watching the raindrops slide down the window. Ryan broke the silence. "You must think I'm strange," he said. Lily shook her head. "No, just different. You're not like the others here. You listen." That made Ryan smile for real, not the fake smiles he wore at parties. He dropped her near her small apartment building and watched her walk away in the rain. Something about that moment stayed with him long after she disappeared inside. The next morning, he brought her breakfast before her shift began. Lily laughed, surprised. "Ryan, you don't have to do this," she said. "I wanted to," he replied simply. The kindness in his voice made her heart flutter, though she tried to hide it. Everyone at the hotel started noticing their bond. Some whispered behind her back, mocking her for dreaming too high, while others smiled, hoping it was true love. Lily ignored the whispers, choosing to believe in the sincerity she saw in Ryan's eyes. Meanwhile, Ryan's friends began teasing him again. "You're spending too much time with your bet," Ethan joked during a lunch meeting. "Careful, Ryan, or you might actually fall for her." Ryan forced a laugh, brushing it off. "Relax, I'm just winning the game," he said, though the words tasted bitter. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought about Lily's smile, her voice, the way she looked at him as if he were more than a name or a bank account. For the first time in years, he felt small in a good way, like a man who wanted to be worthy of someone's love. Days passed, and their bond grew stronger. Ryan learned about her mother who had passed away years ago, and how Lily took responsibility for her sister at a young age. He admired her strength and honesty. She taught him small things: how to enjoy street food, how to appreciate little acts of kindness, how to laugh without worrying about being perfect. He found himself laughing more in her company than he had in years. But Lily also noticed something strange about him. Sometimes, when he looked at her, his eyes carried a shadow, as if he was hiding something. When she asked him once what was wrong, he smiled faintly and said, "Some things are better not said too early." She didn't push further, trusting that time would reveal the truth. One Sunday, Ryan invited her to the park instead of a fancy restaurant. They sat under a big tree, sharing ice cream and watching children play. "You know," Lily said softly, "I used to think love was not for me. I thought people only saw my size, not my heart, but you made me believe that maybe I deserve it too." Her eyes sparkled with emotion. Ryan's heart clenched. He wanted to tell her everything right then, to admit that this had started as a bet. But fear held him back. He couldn't stand the thought of losing the warmth in her eyes. When he dropped her home that evening, Lily turned and said, "Ryan, I don't care who you were before. I like the man I see now." Her words broke through the last wall around his heart. That night, he sat alone, replaying everything. The bet that once felt like a game now felt like a knife hanging over his head. He knew he had crossed a line. He wasn't pretending anymore. Still, he couldn't confess yet. He told himself he would end the bet soon and make things right. He didn't realize that time was running out, that truth has a way of finding its way out when you least expect it. And when it did, it would tear everything apart. For now, he was lost between two worlds: the cruel game he started and the genuine love he was beginning to feel for the woman who had unknowingly become his heart's truth. Ryan was the kind of man everyone talked about in the city, a young millionaire with charm, style, and the kind of confidence that made people believe he could get anything he wanted. His life was a display of success: expensive cars, grand parties, and luxurious vacations. But behind all that shine, Ryan was arrogant and careless with feelings. He didn't believe in love. To him, women were just part of his world's entertainment, people who adored him for his money and looks. One evening, his best friend Ethan threw a grand party at a luxury hotel to celebrate Ryan's new business deal. The music was loud, People were dancing, and the smell of wine filled the air. Everyone there wanted to impress Ryan, but he was bored. Surrounded by people who laughed at his jokes and praised his wealth, he felt nothing real. Then Ethan, after a few drinks, smirked and said loudly, "Ryan, you say you can get any woman to fall for you, but what if I give you a real challenge?" The crowd turned toward them, curious. Ryan leaned back on his chair, amused. "I'm listening," he said confidently. Ethan pointed toward the corner of the hall where Lily was serving drinks. She was wearing a simple uniform, her hair tied in a loose bun, her face glowing with sweat from work. Lily was a plus-size woman, quiet and gentle, nothing like the glamorous girls Ryan usually dated. "Make her fall in love with you and marry you," Ethan said with a grin. The crowd burst into laughter, thinking it was a joke. "Her?" one man chuckled. "Ryan's taste doesn't go that low." The laughter grew, but Ryan's pride was sharp. He hated being challenged, especially in front of people. "Fine," he said coolly. "I'll do it. I'll make her fall for me, and I'll even marry her if that's what it takes." The laughter stopped for a moment, replaced by surprised faces. "You're serious?" Ethan asked, still smiling. Ryan nodded, his voice calm but proud. "A bet's a bet." He looked at Lily again. She was still working, unaware that her life was about to change forever. The night went on, but Ryan couldn't stop glancing at her. Something about her calm face, her soft smile when she talked to guests. It irritated him. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't chasing money or fame. And maybe that was why he wanted to win this bet even more. The next day, Ryan returned to the hotel, something he had never done before. He waited near the counter until Lily came by carrying trays. She almost dropped one when he smiled at her and said, "You work too hard. Can I buy you a coffee?" Lily looked surprised. She had seen rich men before, but none had spoken to her so kindly. "Sir, I'm working," she replied softly. "Maybe another time?" Ryan grinned, pretending to be patient. "Then I'll wait for your shift to end." His confidence made her nervous, but also curious. When her shift finally ended, she found him still waiting. They sat in the hotel cafe, and Ryan talked about simple things, his favorite food, funny stories, and travel. He didn't mention his money or business once. Lily laughed a few times, surprised at how easy he was to talk to. When she left, Ryan smiled to himself, thinking the first step was complete. To him, it was just a game, something to prove his power. But deep down, a strange feeling began to stir, something he couldn't explain. Days turned into weeks, and Ryan kept visiting. He brought her small gifts, flowers, chocolates, little things that made her blush. His friends teased him behind his back, calling her the bet girl, but Ryan didn't care. He wanted to win. Yet each time he saw Lily's smile, the bet started feeling less like a game. She was different from anyone he had ever met, honest, humble, and kind to everyone, even strangers. One rainy evening, she gave her umbrella to a homeless man outside the hotel and walked home soaking wet. Ryan watched from his car, confused. Why would she do that for someone she didn't even know? That night, as he drove home, her image stayed in his mind. For the first time, he wondered what it felt like to care for someone without a reason, but the cruel truth was still hidden. To Lily, Ryan was a charming man who had somehow seen her worth when no one else did. To Ryan, she was still a bet, a challenge to his pride. The world was playing two different games. As days passed, Lily began falling for him, believing every sweet word he said. She didn't know his friends were watching from a distance, counting down the days until the mission was complete. And Ryan, though pretending to win, started losing something inside him, his peace, his control, and slowly, his heart. One night, as he dropped her home after dinner, Lily smiled shyly and said, "I don't know why you chose me, Ryan, but thank you for making me feel seen." Her words hit him like a wave. For a second, he couldn't breathe. When she walked away, he sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel, feeling a strange ache in his chest. It wasn't guilt, not yet, but it was something close. He didn't know that his own bet, made out of arrogance, was about to become the turning point of his life. He didn't know that the woman he chose as a joke would become the one person who would teach him what love truly meant. The cruel bet had begun, but soon it would become a story neither of them could ever forget.